How have you been? Welcome again to the Laurie Brand podcast. On this episode today, we have a very special guest. But first, how are you doing? Like, sincerely, how are you? How is parenting in your constituency? How are you dealing with all the pressure from life? How is marriage and family life treating you? I really want to know, how are you doing? Now, before we dive right in, every conversation we have is always a blockbuster, right? With you in mind, we curate every guest, every content or question so that it serves you at the end of the day. And because of that, we are asking to help us grow bigger, to help us bring on more guests, to help the show get bigger, to where we actually want it to get. We need you to bring your friends and loved ones. Bring that person you've been judging. Yeah, we always have that person we're always thinking about as not doing so well. The good example of a bad parent. Send the link to this podcast to them. Extend a helping hand. Be that parent who shares. Be that parent who lends a helping hand. Be that parent who wants the other person to grow. Share. Click on the share button. It's absolutely free, please. Share this podcast and this episode and bring in everyone you need to learn from this conversation. Thank you so much for always. Now let's dive right in. We have Uncle Kris with us today, the Kris with a K. He's going to tell us briefly about himself and why you should absolutely listen to him. So, Uncle Kris, thank you so much, first and foremost, for being a guest here. He's the first daddy on the show. A round of applause, right? Thank you so much, sir, for agreeing to be here. He's been that voice in my head saying, you can do this. You've got all it takes. Why are you not doing this already? And every time I see him, he's asking, how far have you gone? What's up with this project? Okay, you need to do this, you need to do that. I appreciate that support. I appreciate the vote of confidence. Thank you so much, sir. We really do appreciate you.
Great. Well, thank you for having me. It's a privilege, it's an honor, and I really do appreciate what I'm seeing. I'm happy you took up the challenge and you're here now. And having me as a first male guest, wow, that's another feather to my cap. So I'm going to keep it somewhere and hold it dearly to myself.
You should.
Thank you very much. It's a privilege. Like you said earlier on, my name is Uncle Kris with a K. I got that branded name in one of my conversation with a teenager who said he could help style me into a persona that would be more friendly and amenable to teenagers.
Cool.
Yeah, so
cool guy.
he said, let's call you Uncle Kris with a K. And since then, I took it on, and I think I've enjoyed it. So my background is in, I have a degree in economics and accounting. I've done some deep study on strategy leadership. Recently got a master's in coaching, mentoring, and leadership from university in the UK. And so I try to pride myself on leadership, coaching, mentoring, strategy, and I bring that into my work as a teen mentor. When I'm not doing consulting in management and all that, I'm mentoring teenagers. And it's the same skill set that I use in my corporate world. I've transferred that into mentoring as well, helping them to look for answers to the top 3 questions that they are trying to ask themselves, which is, who am I? Where do I fit in? And what role am I supposed to play in this world? So, and I've been doing that for about 15 years plus now. And I hold it as a calling.
Wow.
And so I'm glad to be here. I'm hoping we can create value for your audience. Thank you.
Wow. 3 questions. Who am I? Where do I fit in? Right?
Yeah.
And
what role am I supposed to play here on earth? Now, in their journey of answering those 3 questions, they discover their identity. They discover their purpose, and they discover their career path. The earlier you help them with channels and avenues to answer those questions. They have to answer those questions themselves. You don't answer it for them. So the earlier they answer those questions, the earlier they get their life on track, and they're able to journey through that teen years from 13 to 19. Yeah, those still have few scars here and there, but little scars compared to if there was no such opportunities and guidance.
Beautiful. Who am I? Where do I fit in? What role am I to play in this world?
Yeah.
Uncle Kris,
Yeah.
where were you when we were growing up? Seriously, because there was nobody to give us this perspective. Like, you see that if as teenagers we got to maybe answer these questions, a lot of parents will not really be struggling right now, because who you are translates to who you still are now.
Yeah.
Just the difference is that you are raising a kid or two.
Yeah.
Where you fit in the grand scheme of things in the world
Yeah.
also determines the values you share with your family, the identity you've carved out as a person relates to or transfers to your family too.
Yeah.
What role am I to play in this world?
Yeah.
A lot of parents do not even understand that they have a role to play in the larger picture. So again, where were you when we were growing up? Seriously.
Well, I think it's just time and chance. The world is evolving. Information is now more readily available than it used to be. So I think I still give our parents credit. They did the best they could based on the information they had then. So the pressure is now on us to parent the next generation who are digital natives. So these ones are now very exposed to information. The moment you're saying something, your 5-7-year-old child is fact checking it. And God help you that what you said is not correct. They're coming back to prove to you that they've scored one against you. So it's just for parents these days to be very aware, which is why we are in the middle. As mentors, we build the bridge. I don't parent teenagers. I tell parents, sometimes some parents who sign me up as mentor want to turn it into parent. I said, no, it's different. You parent your child. I just stay in the middle and build that bridge, help you relearn, unlearn, relearn your communication style, and help the teenagers as well, because the perspective are different. The teenager's perspective is always different from the parent's perspective. And when you create that bridge, it gives the two parties opportunity to listen to each other, embrace each other's perspective, and now create a pathway that can help both of them win as a family.
Win as a family, as against it being a shared dynamic. Father against mother,
Exactly.
and then parents against children.
No.
So there's this division and conflict of interest. That's a very beautiful one. I'm glad that in this day and age, like you rightly mentioned, that this digital generation of kids, or is it iGen kids now, are raising
digital natives, they call them.
That we have you as a buffer, as a place for Beacons really to go unlearn, relearn, and keep learning how to navigate, because what took us here will definitely not take us to the next point. And that's why the conversation we're going to have today is very, very, very important, especially in this day and age where, like you said, children are fact checking. Sometimes it's not just Siri or Google, it's not maybe ChatGPT or Bing AI, it's their friends. It's their friends, the people they have in their clique. And that's why we are going to talk today about the positive effects of peer pressure. A lot of people shine the spotlight every single time about friends and show me your friend and I'll tell you whom you are. And it's always in the negative light. So what is peer pressure in the first place? Can you explain how it can be both positive and negative? And then let's narrow down the conversation to the positive effects of peer pressure.
Okay. Well, that's a very interesting topic. Peer pressure is just simply in simple terms, I would say what it means is a spoken or unspoken pressure that comes from a group of people or a group of persons who have similar status, so to speak. So like age group, in the same class, neighborhood, so like they call them contemporaries for us as parents as well. And it's something that cuts across. I know when you say peer pressure, a lot of people just refer to teenagers, but it's all of us because we're all social beings. So even for us as parents in your neighborhood, depending on what's happening in your neighbor's house, in their surrounding, there is an unspoken pressure that is translating to you. Nobody is saying it, but it's just there. So, for example, your neighbor shows up with a brand new car, depending on the kind of car. Um, you see it, you reason it, and somewhere in your head, you start looking at your own cars. And you're wondering that, okay, is it time for me to also get myself a new car? You were not thinking about that until your neighbor showed up with a new car. Not that your neighbor came and said, look, I bought a car, it's your turn to buy. No, but it's unspoken. So it's just there. That pressure comes and you find yourself wanting to now do something about that pressure. So when we say the positive side or the negative side, for me, it's now looking at there is a kind of pressure that comes from your peer group that pushes you forward, makes you to want to be better at something. Then there's a type that makes you retrogress, you draw back, or you start picking up behaviors that based on the way you've been brought up by your parents, they will not be happy if they find out. Well, because you want to belong, you want to identify and be accepted in that clique or in that group, and you feel like, okay, this is how they would require me to behave for them to accept me, and you want to embrace it. So it's that pressure that comes from, I want to be in that clique, and they say before they can accept me, I need to do these things. It's against what I want to do normally, but I want to be in that clique, so I want to do it.
Wow. On the flip side, even if you're from a home that's probably struggling, some people probably first child A is from a poor home and child B is from a richer background. And there are some things that they do in the rich home that in the other kid's home is maybe new or very, very, very impossible.
Yeah.
And then they mix up and this child starts learning by association.
Yeah.
And then there's this imprint, there's this transference of culture, of values, of everything.
Yeah.
Well, okay, if we look at it from that aspect, then peer pressure is not all bad in itself, right?
No, it's not. It's not. So, like you said earlier on, there's a positive side to it. There's a negative side to it, which is where parents now need to come into play. The example I gave earlier on, I used the parents as example. Your neighbor bought a new car. You already had cars. Your cars are still okay. They are not new, but they are still okay. But suddenly, because your neighbor bought a new car, you are looking at your car, you're asking yourself, maybe it's time to change your car. Now, if you could afford a new car, it's not a problem. But let's assume at that moment, you can't afford a new car. You now start subjecting yourself into immense pressure that I must make sure I shake all my trees of investment so that I can also buy a car so that I can match my neighbor new car for new car. So suddenly that might lead to a situation where you start having high blood pressure, depending on where your business is. And if we trace it to what triggered this, your neighbor bought a new car. The neighbor didn't buy the car for you.
For you.
Yes, but for themselves. Now, in the case of teenagers, we always hear research and so many things have shown us that at that age of 13 to 19, That's where parents begin to lose their influence, a percentage of their influence. So between 7 and 10, 11, parents have influence. You choose what they wear, you give them clothes, you give them shoes, they take it without asking lots of questions. But once they start getting to 11, they get 11, 12, 13. They start arguing what they want to wear with you. And they start making reference to my friend said this. My friend in the class like blue, I want blue. So what it means is a percentage of your influence. You are losing a percentage to their friends, which is where that pair pressure is coming from. And I'm saying that there's a positive side to it rather than as a parent shutting it down from that feeling of I'm losing my child, my teenager. No, tap into the positive side. There's a
Okay.
positive side to that peer pressure. And that's what I'm hoping we'll be able to unravel in
Okay.
today's
How
episode.
can positive peer pressure contribute to personal growth and development? If we say it's good, then how can it actually help the children to grow? How can it help them develop in the right direction? Is it even possible at all?
Yes, so that's where in this day and age, parents need to be very strategic. You need to identify. Um, so if your child is in a class, you need to go find out who are the most influential teenagers in that class, and are they your child's friend? Who are your child's top 5 friends? And you need to investigate those top 5 friends of your child, your teenager. What's their disposition towards the academics? What's their disposition towards learning? If it's a positive one, then meaning that people like that during exams, they would want to have a structure where they form study groups. We do better when we work in pairs. Take for us as parents, those of us who go to the gym. When you go to the gym on your own, how many minutes do you really spend doing rigorous exercise compared to when you show up and you meet a stranger who suddenly talks to you and it now looks as if you guys are doing the exercise routine as a group? If you take time to observe, you can go almost 1 hour plus and you're not feeling tired because you're trying to prove to that person that I'm fit, I got this, I can do this. Compared to if you're there alone, in 30, 20 minutes, you may just be tired and say, what exactly am I doing? This is enough, and you're walking away. So it's the same logic that works with these teenagers. When they are preparing for an exam and they see the most intelligent person in the class forming a study group, people want to get into that group. And they don't want to get there because they just want to, at first, it's not necessarily to study. They want to be in that clique. They want to be in that setting. But in the process of being in that setting, they pick up the behavior, the study routine of that teenager who has the greater influence, who is academically inclined. They pick up that behavior. So they are questioning and discovering that this person actually studies 5 hours in a day, spread across so time and all that. So they pick it, they go back home, and you'll be surprised that that same teenager of yours suddenly is studying. Why are you studying? Yeah, we agreed, myself and Chinedu agreed that we'll be studying. But this is the same teenager you've been trying to get to study for a long time. And they keep telling you, mommy, leave me alone, daddy, leave me alone, I know what I'm doing. But a friend of theirs has created a study group, and this same person is now studying. So that's a positive side that parents need to tap into. There's also the one of behavior, you know. If you ask a lot of teenagers who smoke, how did you end up smoking? So I saw one of my friends smoking, and I just thought, let me try it, and I got hooked. So it's the same thing when they come into a clique of teenagers that they like, they respect, and the most influential teenager there is someone that doesn't smoke. Because they want to get into that person's group and prove to that person that they are in control of their will and all that, they can suddenly start undoing the habit of smoking. And when they find out from that person their own routine, they do chores at home. I help my mom to do this. I help my dad to do this. That same teenager goes back home and starts asking the mom, can I help you do this? Can I help you do that? And you'll be wondering, where is that coming from? It's coming from the influence they're having their friends. I know, like I said earlier on, this, when we say this peer pressure, there's the one that is spoken, there's the one that is not spoken. So the person smoking didn't tell any other teenager start smoking. He just showed up smoking, and they felt like, okay, to prove to you I want to smoke. I didn't say it. But there's one that will say it directly to you. Do you smoke? No, I try it. I don't want to know. You should try it. That's spoken. Then unspoken, rating, unrated. When a teacher comes into the class and tells everybody, look at John, he scored the highest in maths class. All of you should try and start doing well in maths like John. That is a spoken pressure on everybody that I need you guys. John is the standard. So anything you are doing, you must present a result that beats John's result. So that's something that parents should look into. You need to strategically help create that group around your teenager. And you also need to know in that group which one is your teenager also influencing, because in that pair everybody influences.
True.
Everybody, it's just time. So there's one that influences people on academics, there's another that will influence people on creativity, entrepreneurship, on dating, on you name it, everything that happens around teenagers. So you need to also know which one is your teenager also the main influencer, and tap into the positive side of it.
This is a lot to unpack. So you mean, apart from being a dad or a mom, working maybe 1 or 2 jobs, raising 2 or 3 or 4 children, you mean we still have to now sit down and start carefully curating the friends that our children associate with?
Yeah.
What if is it remotely? Is it even possible for you to tell your child, okay, maybe as a teenager, some people have this belief that teenagers are rebellious. I, for one, I don't buy it, because I believe it's what you raise. I mean, is it possible for us to handpick or curate consciously or intentionally the people? Like you said, one has to be creative, the other has to be entrepreneurial. Talk about one has to be all about health and fitness, academic. There has to be a social butterfly in their midst, and then be sure how your child is influencing the others too. Are we going to now start speaking? Before we had this show, this episode, you mentioned also now connecting with their parents too.
Yeah.
How do you mix up all of these with being a father, being a husband, being the many things you are in 24 hours of every day? Like, how do you do it?
Yeah, so it boils down to, remember I said earlier in my background, I did a lot of courses on strategy. And for me right now, in today's world, parenting is strategy. Parenting is strategy. You need to be strategic in how you parent your children. Just like you strategize when you're preparing for an exam. You strategize when you want to, like in project management, talk about strategy on how to ensure that the project goes according to time, plan, resources, and all that. So it's the same thing with parenting. Now that I know that when my kids get to 13 to 19, a percentage of my influence on them is going to be transferred to their friends. That already gives me intelligence with which to shape my strategy. Who are those friends? The friends are going to be likely from school, first of all, because that's the main common ground they go to. They spend more time in school than at home. The other hours they have at home, they are sleeping. So in school, they are awake for about 8 hours. So who are those friends? When you identify those friends, you need to, on your own, investigate who are the parents of those friends and identify the value system of the parents, because the parents are also their major influencer. The same way you're a major influencer to your own teenagers. And if those values align, you dig deep into those individual friends. You dig deep and find out if the values align, your values and their parents' value align, and you see that the teenager is a very good influence on your child. What you want to do now is look for common ground between you and their parents. Common ground. So, for example, my daughter won a competition where she won a voucher for facials in a spa, and she was supposed to go with friends. And that was a window for me. I gave her names. Call this your friend. She called, and the friend was ready to go, but her father said it wasn't available for pick up and drop off. And I said, no, I'll call the dad. I called the father and said, I'm available. I'll do it. What was I doing? I was trying to connect with the dad because I've seen that his daughter is a very strong influence on my daughter.
Wow.
And I'm okay with the friendship because I've looked around and I've seen that, okay, our values are aligned. I'm okay with it. But I also want to create an opportunity to allow myself and my daughter's friend's dad become also good friends. It's not easy to create friendship at our level. It's not.
True.
But
Yes.
you look for common ground. So for me, that was a window. He couldn't do the pickup. And I used that as a window. So I went, drove my daughter, drove to the friend's house, saw the dad we greeted, picked his daughter, drove her to the spa, waited, they finished, and I brought her back home. That created I mean, that softened the ground,
And
you
avenue
know.
for trust too.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, for him, for the man to allow me pick his daughter, you know. So from that time till now, we always have these conversations where if they need to hang out, I just tell has she spoken to her dad? Okay, I know what to do, you know. So just keep building that
Wow.
one parent to one another and build that community. I think we're going back to that time where they say it takes a village to raise a child. We're going back there. It may not be as it happened back then because this is now a global village, but we need to look for a way to create that strong community. And like I said, because I know from research that between 13 and 19, a percentage of my influence will be handed over to their friends. That informs my strategy on how I connect with parents of those friends. If they are not easy to connect with, I will keep working it until we make the connection.
Wow.
Yeah, I'll keep doing that. And part of what I will also do is to also find out where they are in terms of their parenting and this same information that I have. Because the moment they also have the information that their own influence too is being ceded to their daughter's friend, they will also now see the importance of why we should connect to
Wow.
cover the back end together.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It just reminds me of the one of the episodes we've had in time past about your family being a sovereign state.
Yeah.
And as a sovereign state, you must have allies, formidable ones for that matter.
Yeah.
Everyone knows that you can't mess with some countries in the world.
Yeah.
Right now, China is becoming a superpower too, and a lot of countries are repositioning on how they should I say interact or deal with them, whether with business.
Mandarin is now becoming one of the language everybody wants to learn.
So I actually made that an allegory for families too. Is your family one that anybody can just mess with? What allies are you? What formidable allies are you building around your children? Because of course, someday you will not be around, and it's that uncle or that auntie that has to advise your child. Who are those people? Like you said, it's we're going back to that place where it takes a whole community, a village. These days it's not just our physical village, the global village has
it's a
become a
global
part of it.
village.
That brings me to the point where social media, you see some kids at 9, they already have a phone, they're already connected to maybe TikTok or sometimes just WhatsApp and FaceTime. While we are very, very aware of what's going on in the world as far as the negative side, I want us to have this podcast as a place of hope, right? A place, a source of confidence and faith that yes, even if the world is burning, we have the water here to quench that fire, or firefighters here to help us with key skill sets to maybe thrive, to maybe do well. The digital sphere we're in now, like when you have a shirt, I know.
Yeah.
Probably not because you posted it, but because your child did. Sometimes you even know the classroom some people's kids are in. You just don't know the school. Like, it's not just the school anymore. You know the classrooms. You sometimes even know their teachers. How does this affect the children positively? Is it possible that a child in Singapore, a child in China, a child in the US can affect or influence your child's well-being while still here in Nigeria? And if yes, how do we navigate all of that, and how do we harness the potential in that?
Yeah, so it's very possible. Thank you for that question, and which is why I'm big on creating the community, and I'm happy that online now there are a lot of platforms that are coming up with solutions to help parents to also be very strategic in how they're raising their children and how they're running their homes.
Okay.
It's like you say, it's a global village. Um, it's just like your house now. In the night, you lock your door when you want to go to bed. You lock your door. And sometimes if you can't remember you lock your door, you wake up in the night and you go and check again and realize you locked your door.
Sure.
Now with the internet it's different. With that device, somebody far away in America can come into your house 2 a.m. in the night with that device. 2 a.m. in the night, 3 a.m. in the night. Once the device is on, there is internet and is active online. Somebody from anywhere in the world can come into your house. And if the children have their device in their bedroom, that person is coming straight into the bedroom if the device is active. So no matter how you
Hold
lock
on,
your
Uncle
door.
Kris,
Yeah.
just hold on. Coming in, like, that's spooky.
Yeah. They
I
come
don't
in,
get it.
they're chatting with them on the phone. They're chatting with them on the device. So there's a case in America, I think just last year, of a 17-year-old boy that committed suicide.
Wow.
And why did he do that? He was chatting with someone online and he thought it was a female. And they were exchanging conversations, and the female, supposedly convinced him to send pictures of himself not wearing anything, which he did. And later it turned out to be that there were three Nigerian guys living in Africa who were the ones chatting with him. So on getting those nude pictures, they now blackmail him that if you don't start sending us money, we'll spread these nude pictures across all platforms and we'll use it to shame you. Now the young man couldn't handle it, and he went to commit suicide. So this was the statement the father said. The father said that he's here in his house I can't remember the state, whether Florida or so, in the night sleeping. In his bedroom, he has locked his door. His son was in his own room, and three strangers from Africa walked into his son's bedroom and threw words at the son that now made the son to go and commit suicide. What else could he have done as a father? So that's what I mean by we say a global village. So in that global village, people can walk in and out of people's space via the internet. So it's for us now as parents, which is why I said the community is very important, what you're building. And now the thing is, remember, we're focusing on the positive side. That same internet, some people have seen inspirational stories of teenagers who became self-taught millionaires from information they downloaded from the internet. And some other teenagers have taken that and ran with that, and they have also become self-taught billionaires. So that's what I'm saying, that if there's a positive side to it. There's a positive side to this peer pressure we're talking about. And social media offers both. It depends on what parents have been able to deposit inside their child as they transition from child adolescence to teenage and to young adult. So it depends on what you deposited and how they can use that, which is why I'm saying that identify those friends. So when we say friends, so there's the physical part. Now, the online part, the movies they are watching,
Yeah.
the series they are watching, the music they are listening to, the entertainer they are following. So sometimes when I engage teenagers, I always ask them, tell me your top 5 favorite artists. And they tell me, I say, why? And in the process, as they are talking and explaining, I start checking their dress sense. I start checking their color combination. And if you look into the details, you see similarity. You match it with one of those names they've mentioned, and it starts giving me an idea of how to approach whatever conversation we want to have.
Wow.
Especially if any of those artists have a reputation that is not so good. So you want to now start knowing that, okay, why is this artist such an influence? Why is this one of your favorite? You want to listen first. You're not quick to let them know what you know. You want to listen first, know where they are, meet them where they are, because sometimes they may not just be aware that their favorite artist has a drug problem. They may not just be aware that their favorite artist has been arrested previously and has been charged or has been described as a pedophile. They may not be aware. They're just looking at the surface information and all that. So it's to know that, but we're zooming in on the positive side. The internet is there. Social media is there. There's a positive side to it. It all depends on how parents allow their teenagers. And with regards to exposure to the internet, I don't really have any age. It depends on the individual child. Some kids at as early as 11, 12 are able to organize themselves and follow the rules, while some at 11, 12 are not able to organize themselves. So it will be detrimental for a parent to give an 11-year-old that over the years you've been struggling to get them to organize themselves. You're not giving them phone.
Yeah.
Now, there's another 11-year-old. At 11, they can organize them. So when you get into their bedroom, you'll be wondering, is this a room of a full-grown adult? They can organize themselves. They know when to study, when to sleep. They know when to eat. They know how to organize themselves. At 11, such a child will do better with handling the exposure to smartphone better, even at 11, than a 15-year-old that is still struggling to organize themselves. So it's not something I can say it must be this age, it must be that age. It's for the parent to decide based on that individual child.
Before we go on to the next question, I know you've been learning a lot, right? Haven't you? Really say the truth. Nkechi, say the truth. You've been learning something. Tap the share button. Go on and like the video. Comment. Let us know how to help you. If you don't share that problem, how do we know where you need help? And remember, this is not just any podcast show. This is not just any social media handle. We are very big on community in here. So much so that if we find any negative response or reply to your comment, we will not only delete the comment, we would block the person from accessing anything on here in the future. Reason being that we want a community of like minds who are heavily invested on supporting each other. It takes a community, like we've said, like Uncle Kris has reiterated severally, to raise children. This is our gift to you, an online community to help you in that regard. So go ahead, feel free to ask questions where you're not clear. Feel free to leave person concerns and be sure that they will be attended to. So back to our conversation, Uncle Kris, please can you share some strategies, us as parents, whether we're raising kids or adolescents, that can help us harness the positive parts of peer pressure and curb the negative part, because of course we need to be aware of what we can do to curb the negative so that we can shine the spotlight on the positive and reward that and see more of it. How can we do that? How can we achieve that? Bring out the best in that regard.
Thank you for that question. I think it all starts with, like I said earlier, one of the places that our kids spend most time in a day is school.
Okay.
So we start from school. The next place will be the neighborhood
Okay.
where you live. Then another place will be a religious home where you worship. So
Okay.
for those going to the mosque, those going to church. So those are three key areas I pointed out: school,
School.
your environment where you live, and your place of worship. So let's start with school. You spend about 8 hours there, so they spend more time there. So each time they're having conversations with you, you want to pay attention to the names they are calling. You know, you want to pay attention to the names they are calling, and you want to engage them around those names. The goal is to find out, is this a positive influence or is this a negative influence?
Okay.
Now, the moment this person is a positive influence in what way? You need to identify that and note it down. And you now need to be creative in such a way that there'll be more, at least 2, 3 names. 2, 3 names that are positive influence. Among those 2, 3 names, which one is influencing them in terms of academics? So on your own, you and a parent of the one that influences them on academics, you can plan a hangout that will involve the kids. Now, in that hangout, what you're trying to do, you're trying to stage a study group, help them unconsciously create a study group. So during the hangout, it's just like what happens during birthday parties of babies. The parents sit one corner and just start gisting. So it's the same thing. You hang out and you help them create a study group. You build it around the most influential in terms of academics. So that's one. Then another thing is in sports, for example. In sports, like my children's school recently had inter sports. My daughter wasn't really big on sports, but I noticed most of her close friends were doing 1 or 2 events, and she challenged herself and picked up 1 or 2 events. I know that from day one, when I was telling her do, she said, "No, I can't do any." But the moment she saw most of her key friends participating, she knew that for the conversation to make sense when they gather as friends, she also needs to say, "I did this." She picked up one and eventually did one, and she did okay. Not her best, but she did okay. And I know that that behavior, that participation came from the peer pressure they have on themselves as friends. So as parents, um, it's for you to just be strategic in helping your kids. And one major way is study group. When that pair start being among the sets that come out with the best result, it builds their confidence, and it helps them to stand out as a clique, and they want to keep doing better in terms of academics. Now there's also the other one of behavior. uh and because they are doing this behavior in school where they spend at least 8 hours, it subconsciously becomes a habit they bring home. If your teenagers are in a clique where they respect teachers in school, they are obedient, they are hardworking among their peers, when they come home, um, they may not be as obedient as they are in school, but that element of obedience is there because they spend more hours in school. So that behavior is there. It now depends on how you communicate with them at home to bring that up.
Uncle Kris,
Yes, please.
your last response got me thinking. If our children spend 8 hours in school, most of their waking moments, most of the year in school, and around their friends, in the midst of their friends, and teachers or educators act in local parentage, that's teachers in place of parents
Yeah.
or caregivers, can educators help in this light to harness the positive aspects of peer pressure? If yes, how can they do so?
Yeah, that's another very interesting question. Yes, yes, yes. Educators can, teachers can, and I think these days they do it. I mean, I've experienced that in my kids' school as well. So there's a way they pair students who are doing very well with some students who are not doing very well but have the potential to do well. So they make them sit together. And I
Yeah,
mean,
that's
I've
true.
experienced that.
Uh-huh.
I've seen that in action. So they make them sit together and try to get the one who is doing so well to rub off that their attitude on the other one that needs to catch up. And I've seen situations where 3, 4 months later, both students were doing better.
Mm.
So the one who wasn't doing well didn't pull the other one down. Rather, the one who was doing well
So
pulled.
how can, for instance, how can that happen? How can that be the case? How can we make that the case that the slow one doesn't, in quotes, please, the maybe
Yeah.
the slow paced learner doesn't draw back or slow down the fast paced learner?
So
How
so
can
that's
we?
that's where remember we're talking about the peer pressure now. So in that class of say 15, in that class of 15, let's assume the teenager who's doing very well academically is a leader of a pair of five. Now, this teenager who is not doing so well, that they've just moved to sit with the one who is doing so well, is the least in that group of five, or is an outsider that wants to be in that group of five.
Hmm.
So the pressure to want to belong, it's a very powerful, it's a
Yeah,
very powerful force.
okay, I get
Yes.
it.
The pressure to want
Level
to
of
belong
high.
will
Okay.
make that teenager suddenly go back home and said, I
Mm.
want to prove to these guys that I deserve a
I
seat
sit
on
on
their
the
table. So what does it take? I need to study more. I need to do this. I need
okay.
to do that.
Hmm.
Um, it's not whether they are unintelligent. Every teenager is intelligent because even the one that is a video game addict, it takes intelligence to be a champion in video games. So
Yeah.
every teenager is intelligent. What is lacking is interest.
Hmm.
Interest. So how do you activate that interest? One of the ways is through the positive side of peer pressure. When they want to belong to a clique and you've checked, especially where parents collaborate and they are not aware, we create that clique. And in that clique, we've identified an entrepreneur, we've identified an academician, we've identified a leader, we've identified a creative, we've just put them together as a clique. It's not all the time that the one that is most intelligent will lead. They rotate the leadership. So during exam, we all want the one that is the most intelligent to lead because we're preparing for exam. When we're not writing exam, we want maybe the entrepreneur to lead. So they rotate that position of leadership, which is why I'm saying that you also need to know in that clique what role is your child playing.
Hmm.
Because like the Bible said, when you are looking for a good friend, start by being a good friend. So when you're looking for positive influence for your teenager, start by making sure that your child, your teenager,
Hmm.
is a positive influence.
Yeah.
So that's how I'll put that.
Wow. That's so insightful. That's so insightful. And it's making me really, really think again. What key factors contribute to the peer group dynamic,
Mm,
the positive peer group dynamic?
mm,
I I am most of the time a lone wolf, even though they say the lone wolf is the one that's been ostracized from the pack. I
mm,
just want to be my space and do my thing.
mm,
And by extension, one of my daughters is that way.
mm,
She's in a class, she just wants to be by herself. Sometimes she wants the classroom to be quiet when she wants to be quiet.
mm.
And okay, during their um parent teachers conference, I learned that they had to pair her with a kid that is more outspoken. But
Okay.
sometimes, like you said,
Mm.
he pulls her out of her
Comfort
shell.
zone. Yeah.
Yes. Why are you
Mm,
not? the teacher is asking a question, you
Mm.
answer. Even when she knows the answer, she doesn't want to talk.
Mm.
And then she calms him down and goes, "You're being too loud. Can you keep quiet?"
For a balance.
How do we, what factors can contribute to such dynamic? Is it that the teachers have to consciously, or parents have to middle and create consciously, deliberately, intentionally create that environment that fosters that um pair, that union
Mm.
or grouping? Or is it something that should come at the prerogative of the child? Is it something we should sell to them subtly, or do for them? Should we guide them subtly? Like, okay, you should be around such people. What I did was teach them values and make that yardstick for them to pick their
Mm.
friends. But this is a notch above just values.
Mm.
It's about intentionally wanting the skill set you want to embody, the identity you want to imbibe. What key factors can contribute to that group dynamic? Should we allow them do it themselves, or should we influence it by our own selves?
Well, to be honest, it's a combination of everything.
Okay.
The main thing is just do it from a place of awareness.
Okay.
And depending on the age of the child, I mean, from 8 to like 7, 9, 10, you still have more influence.
Mm.
So, teachers rotate their seats. You have a conversation with teachers know what's happening, rotate their seats, you give approval, but from that 12 to 15, your percentage of influence is shrinking. So they have a say. So you need to have a conversation, which is why I said when you're talking with them, you ask names of friends. Conversation will reveal the name. So you know who is who. And so based on that, that's where you know how to shape it. It's not one cap fits all. The situation will tell you, and which is why that community is also important, because sometimes you may do all these things and realize that in this particular case, there's no need to create a pair. Just leave things the way they are. It depends. It's just for you to be aware. Like I said, it's strategy. Sometimes the strategy shows you that in this particular case, just let everything play out and leave it. While sometimes the intel shows you that you need to be part of this. You need to identify with the class teacher, get intelligence from the class teacher in the religious home, church or mosque, get information from the teacher there as well. Then in your neighborhood, friends that they relate with, get information. Then you mix those three together and create action point based on the
Wow.
interpretation that you have. Yeah. So that's what I'll say there.
Wow.
Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Uncle Chris. But it won't be it won't be that episode if we don't bring this home,
Mm.
like, to you as our guest personally. And before I get into the question, I want to say a very big thank you to you for all you do, for all the efforts, for all the sacrifices, the sleepless nights,
Mm.
and to your wife in extension, because it takes a lot of courage to be away from your loved ones. I mean, I'm saying it from a perspective of a mom,
Mm.
even if, especially when it means you going in pursuit of something that has anything to do with you.
Mm.
Like, I was just scrolling on Instagram yesterday and I saw a post, and then they said, yeah, hold on, your child will not die. Go and get that item for yourself.
Mm.
You're always constantly making sacrifices
Mm.
to make sure that your children are okay. It's more so that you need a vacation, but you are feeling guilty.
Yeah.
If you don't go on one, you're stressed. You finally take one, and then
I am
you're
now
feeling,
stressing again
how
that
are they doing? So
yeah.
thank you so much to
Mm-hmm.
you and your wife for all the
Pleasure.
sacrifices, for
Mm.
being deliberate and intentional, and for actually taking on the task or the challenge to teach other people to do the same.
Mm.
Because by embodying that identity, you're not just daring greatly, you're giving other people the permission to do so too.
Mm.
Thank you so much. Take your flowers. We
It's a pleasure.
appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
And
God.
please do extend our warm and deepest regards to Madam too.
Will do.
Now, about peer pressure,
Mm,
now that she's away on studies, for studies rather, how do you manage comments from a friend? Now, I'm asking because I was privileged to see a movie. It was about, okay, it wasn't really about them per se, but there was a couple, they were both cops. And it got to a point, they had a kid, they had a daughter, and they had to step down a bit, like double back on their roles. Instead of being field agents, they took on desk tasks. And at some point, after I think the maternity leave, the woman wanted to go back to active service, but then the man wanted to stay back and be the stay-at-home dad. It was beautiful initially until it got to a point where, of course, tongue waggers started wagging their tongues,
mm,
started passing comments, side comments.
mm,
You are now the woman, she's now the man.
mm.
Why do you have to babysit when she goes out there and have all the fun and all the action? How do you manage comments? Okay, some really like, long story short, they ended up separating
Mm,
because the man was feeling emasculated. The woman
mm,
wanted the freedom to still be the cop she wanted or she dreamt of. How do you manage comments from friends or people generally? Let's not
mm,
say friends because we're deliberate, we curate our associations, right?
mm,
Comments, side comments like in passing, who do not see the big picture of working together as a team
mm,
in the family,
mm,
especially with your wife not being around now,
mm.
when they pass such comments as, why are you the one here? Why is she over there? How do you handle it? What do you do? Does that put you in any pressure to maybe want to change the dynamic? Does it
Mm,
influence how you see the situation in any way? Can other Beacons watching right now who share the same dynamic, what can
mm.
they do to maybe grow a tough skin towards all of that?
I think one of the things that got to me, your question, is the last word that you used, tough skin. By the grace of God, my wife and I have been married now for 15 years.
Wow,
June this
that's a
year,
lot.
yeah, June
Woo.
this year will be 16, and we're blessed with 4 kids. Yeah, like you said, she had to travel for study leave. So, um, when I was getting married to my wife, the so-called friends in quote were not there.
Mm,
They were not part of the people that raised the bride price that I paid and
mm,
all that. So the
wow.
point I'm trying to make is I ignore those kind of comments. I don't hear them,
Mm,
and they fall off me. They don't find any space in my heart. Um, the reason why she had to go for the course she went to was something that we both sat down, discussed, and in the process, remember I said I have background. I have background in strategy, and everything I do,
mm,
I'm strategic. So we discussed it, and in the process of discussing,
mm,
drawing up a strategy and all that, I saw all this part already months back. And we designed all we need to do, how we keep communication active, myself and her and the kids and all that. And we have all that planned out. Yes, walking the road turned out not to be as easy as we thought, but
mm,
the surprises are not many. There are few surprises here and there. And it's just to ignore all those things and focus on the end goal.
mm,
You want this person to improve themselves career wise so that it can also contribute in the long run to her being a better version of herself, which will translate into her being a better wife, which translate to her being a better
role model too.
mother and all that. So it's to look at the big picture, the
Mm,
end goal, and stay focused on that and ignore um, all that, saying. I think
wow.
that's where I am for me, and it makes it a lot easier.
Okay, so I know a lot of our viewers right now are curious. Does it ever get lonely? Does it
Well,
make you now rethink everything?
yeah, it does. But you see, I'm a work person, so I
Mm,
fill up the vacuum with work.
mm,
I do a lot of things. I I spend time with teens. I spend time with the kids. I spend time doing workout, do exercise. I read. Like I said, I just completed a master's program for coaching, mentoring, leadership. As I speak to you now, I'm searching for another one to start. Just things to occupy myself mentally, and just put something on the table that I need to chase, until when, she's done with her program, and she'll come back and
Oh,
and
wow.
all that. So that's
Wow.
that's how I need to fill that vacuum
Wow.
up with activities, and that's what I'm doing. This is part of it. Being here in your podcast is also
Awesome.
helping.
Time. We appreciate you a lot.
Mm.
And before you go, a quick one. We have a tradition in this podcast where we ask 2 questions to end each episode. The first one is, in our local parlance here in Nigeria, it shocked you. What came as a shock to you when you first became a parent? Like, you were not prepared for this at all. You just came and got you up right on your knees. Like, what's this one?
Well, it's a very interesting question, and to be honest, um, because of my background and how I went about preparing to be a parent, um, I can't pick anything now.
Wow.
Because we had the premarital class. I had questions in my head. A lot of those questions were addressed during the premarital class. And, a year after marriage, I had our first child, a girl. I always wanted the first child to be a girl because I grew up in a family of boys. So I was always looking forward to having daughters. My second child came, another girl. Okay, I think the main thing was now when the twins arrived. Yes, 7 years after marriage, my wife and I thought we were done. And 7 years after marriage, we had the twins, so we had to go back
again and start afresh.
so that was a tough one for me, adjusting mentally back to sleepless night, babies, and this time it's not just a baby, 2 babies crying. Yeah,
Right?
that was a tough one for both of us to adjust. And when I was growing up, I always loved seeing twins. I was like, I love twins, but it didn't occur to me that raising them up as babies is real work. Double diapers, double baby milk, and when one is crying, the other one might be sleeping. And the moment you succeed in putting that one to bed, the other one now starts crying. So there's possibility that for 7 hours all through the night you'll not sleep because baby A was sleeping while baby B was crying. Then by the time baby B is now sleeping, baby A is now crying. And I mean, that was an experience. So now when I see grown up twins, I laugh. I just try to imagine what the parents were going through when they were babies.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah.
God never answered that prayer for me because maybe I forgot because it's a lot, Having one child cry alone is plenty. It's not even the baby stage for me. It's that toddler, that tantrum stage where they call them terrible, or should we say terrific too? And when they want what they want, how they want it, when they want it, it's very, very, it's very, very troublesome. So how were you able to navigate those challenges?
Well, we did it together. We did it together with the seniors as well. So their seniors came into the game, and so we all did it together. It's a teamwork. So we share the burden, so it's not too heavy on one person.
That's so nice.
Yeah.
Okay, finally, before we let you go, Uncle Kris, what's your definition of excellence?
For me, I'll just say showing up every time with the effort that does something that is ordinary in an extraordinary way.
Wow.
And you are consistent at it. So irrespective of how you feel, you show up and you give your best. Now, your best is progressive. So my best yesterday cannot be better than my best today. I put that pressure on myself, and that's what I define as excellent.
Wow. That's a good one. Consistently building upon yesterday so that tomorrow will be a better version of today.
Yeah.
And that's one value we uphold daily here on the podcast, being better 1% every single time so that by compound effect, you get the results you seek. I'm running out of words to say thank you for the time, for the sacrifices you made, for moving your schedule around to be here. We appreciate you. We honor you. We're really, really very grateful. Thank you so much, Uncle Kris,
My
for
pleasure.
the very, very insightful conversation. And you, Beacons, you've heard it all. You have to be eclectic in approach. You have to focus on the positives. While the world is crying about your children or you in your own space, crying about the negativity associated with being friends with people, you can actually harness the positives. There's always the good. Try and focus on the good so that you attract more of it. Remember, for us here in the Lorry brand, when others say there is a casting down, we must always say there is a lifting up. Your friends can be friends with other people in other parts of the world and still be better versions of themselves. Don't limit your children's potentials or capacity to be and do and become better because somebody somewhere said there's negative peer pressure. There's such thing as positive peer pressure. And with our conversation today, a very rich and robust conversation today, I hope we've been able to share a lot. I hope we've been able to convince you that indeed there's positivity in peer pressure. And I hope you are able to pick one or two things that you begin to implement moving forward to make your parenting journey easier and to raise excellent children. Until we meet again in our next conversation, stay excellent.